Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining me on another week of the Pastor Connection. Of course, I'm Andrew Conrad, and happy to do this and connect with you in this digital way in the midst of a COVID world. We've been going through the Lord's Prayer, and so I want to keep encouraging you in this. And today we come to the phrase, "Forgive us our debts." Now, what is a debt? It's interesting. Jesus uses language here that is economic language, financial language. So we think of debts, right, all the time. We have bills that we pay, medical bills that may be ongoing, mortgages, college student debt, all kinds of things. And those bills come all the time, every month, and we have to pay them. And we're kind of used to that. So we feel the weight of that, but we don't necessarily feel the guilt or the shame of that, right? It's just a bill we got to pay. But what about this? What about when you go out to a restaurant or you go to shop and you give them your card and they swipe your card and they say, "I'm sorry, it was declined." How do you feel in that moment? You feel ashamed. You're like, what? I don't have funds? What? And it's embarrassing. Right? And in that moment, you don't have money to pay. You have no credit. You are in debt in a way, right? And so in debt means you owe something to somebody, and you owe it to God. Your debt to God. You are in debt to God when you make transactions against His law. So just think, for example, the first two of the 10 Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me, and no idols, right? Well, this is something we transgress or we make transactions against routinely, right? When we go after food or alcohol or sex or porn or money, whatever the thing that you pursue that you think you need at that moment to make you happy and satisfied becomes your functional God. You have another God. To put it another way, the thing that you trust, the thing that you think will make you secure, the thing that you think will make you safe, the thing that you think gives you love and happiness, that thing that you serve is what at that moment is your idol, your God. And so every time you do that, you are making a transaction. You're swiping and accumulating debt against God. Think of one of the other commandments, to honor the Sabbath day, right? It's a way of saying you need to find rest in God. But if you always feel like you're wandering and you're never able to find rest in God, then you are spending it on other things. Oh, well, I'll do this. This will bring me happiness. This will bring me rest. I need another vacation. I need this. Yeah, those sometimes are ways to try to bypass God to find rest. And He says to find rest in Him. So what do you have to do when you have debt? You have to own it. You really have to own it for yourself. And there's two things we usually do instead of owning it. The first one is we like to blame something or somebody else. We might blame a person or a circumstance for the trouble that we're in. Like, for example, we say, well, yes, I lost my temper, but that's how I was raised. You see, when you're blaming, there's another word that will often come up in your language, and that word is but. Yes, but. Well, yeah, I cheated, but that's how you have to do it to get into college. Or yeah, I stole a little of this, but that's how you got to get ahead. You see? And that's what we do. We blame somebody else. We don't really own it. The second way that we tend not to own it is we tend to say, it's no big deal. Let's just ignore it. Can we just forget about it? And so that's the common language you hear. Can we just move on? Can we get past this? That's a way of saying, it's not that big of a deal. Let's forget about it. But it also denies the hurt and the reality of an offense that is caused against somebody else. If you're to say to your spouse, hey, it's no big deal, can we just move past it? And she says, no, it really hurt. It's because it's a big deal. You can't just wipe it away and forget about it. So you can't excuse sin, nor can you explain it away. So the question becomes, how do you get out of debt? And Jesus in this prayer is instructing us how to do that. He's saying you pray and you ask your Father in heaven and you say, forgive me my debt. Now, that's a hard thing to do because one of the tendencies that we tend to rely on to get out of debt is to pay it off, right? Especially if you were taught to work hard in life and make sure you pay what you owe and everything, then your tendency might be to pay it down. You You just want to pay off the debt. I'll just work. God, I'll work it off. I promise I'll do better next time. I'll work harder on it. But here's the thing. You don't have the money to pay it off. You can't pay the debt that you owe to God. Well, correction, you can, but it costs you your life. You see, you were made in God's image. And sin is fundamentally breaking, marring, and destroying that image of God. When that image of God is broken, then death is the way of erasing that. To say what needs to happen is there needs to be a new life, a new creation in my image. The only way to pay that debt is to actually die. And you don't want to pay that debt. And so what you are being taught by the beautiful one, Jesus, is to say, forgive me. Forgive me my debt. And here's the thing about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not the absence of payment. Somebody has to pay. Somebody's got to pay. Now you may say, no, that's not true. Like bankruptcy, we have bankruptcy. I just file for bankruptcy and then I don't have to pay. Yeah, no, somebody has to pay. You might get forgiven. The companies that you owe money have to swallow that debt. They pay it and they pass it on to their consumers and build it into their costs. So other people are paying it for your forgiveness. A big thing right now, popular idea is, hey, let's forgive all student debt. Let's have the government forgive student debt. Whether you like that idea or not, I'm not getting political on you, but what I want you to understand is it's not free. To forgive it means somebody pays for it. It's called the taxpayer. They pay for it, right? So it'll spread the load to more people to pay that, but it's not free. It's not the absence of payment. And the same thing is true in your debt against God. To be forgiven is not the absence of payment. It's actually the making of a payment. It's just that somebody else is making the payment on your behalf. God himself pays. When Jesus was stretched out on the cross and nailed to it, and he says, Father, forgive them. And then he says, it is finished. That word, it is finished, is an economic language word. It's over, it's paid. Jesus said the debt is paid. You see, because he traded his life for your life. And when you say, Father, forgive me my debt, what you are saying is, Jesus, I'm thankful that you paid my debt, that it was your life for my life. And that changes the way you live. It produces gratitude and thankfulness. And I want you to remember this. When Paul was writing about in 2 Corinthians and saying he struggled with things that were going on this thorn in his flesh, and God responded to him and said, my grace is sufficient for you. When you swipe that card and it gets declined, it's because for some reason there's either a glitch or there's insufficient funds. But what God is saying is that because of my grace, there is always sufficient funds. I'm going to leave you now to pray the Lord's Prayer and let you go to God and think about the forgiveness that you need. Ask him for it. His funds are sufficient.